Today. We've got people joining in. We'll give folks another couple minutes. Appreciate everyone joining today and would like to welcome our wonderful guest, Ginny Dietrich. Welcome, Ginny.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Very happy to have you. So yeah, we like to get a sense of where folks are dialing in from. So I'd love to just have everyone drop into the chat, the city or the country that you're joining us from. We usually get quite a global crowd, so it's always interesting to see where people are from. So just drop that into the chat and we'll get a sense of where everyone's at. Also, want to welcome everyone formally to the webinar. Today we're going to be diving into the future of comms and how AI is bringing a new hyper-personalized focus to our industry, which is very exciting. And so we're going to dive in. I'm going to formally introduce Ginny in a minute. But before we do that, a couple of quick things. First of all, very excited to share that Propel is offering a special discount to all SpinSucks members who sign up for our product. So you can go to our website, propelmypr.com /pricing. You can see our packages, and you're able to get a 20% discount off of the listed price with this promotional code SpinSucks, one word. So yes, we value what Ginny and SpinSucks are doing and all of the thought leadership and great things you guys are bringing to the industry. And so we wanted to extend this offer.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's
yes,
really nice of you.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Ginny. I see a lot of people now are writing where they're dialing in from. We've got quite the crowd, New York City, Chicago. We've got Bonnie from Austin, Betty from Calgary, Michigan, New Jersey, DC, California, Raleigh, San Diego, Atlanta, Philly, Vermont, Louisiana, all across the board, Canada, US. Great to see everyone. And while we wait for people to continue to join for another minute or so, we always like to launch a poll. So what aspect of hyper-personalization do you find most challenging for your PR efforts? Is it the identifying of audience segments? Is it crafting personalized content? Is it integrating AI tools, or is it measuring effectiveness? Jenny, do you have a thought there? What would you vote?
What aspect of hyper-personalization do I find most challenging? Identifying audience segments, crafting personalized content, integrating AI tools. Oof. Probably the personalized content one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well.
Yeah.
I know, like at my agency, when I had an agency, that was the deal breaker. If we personalized the pitch really well, we almost always got a response, and if we didn't, we almost never did. What was your experience with?
That's fair. Yeah. And I will say that as someone who's pitched nonstop, if the pitch is personalized, they'll probably at least get an answer. And if not, which is 99.999% of them, I just delete.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nowadays, who has time for a spray and pray pitch that looks copy pasted?
Right.
Yeah. So let's look at the results for the poll. Sonia, we can close out the poll. And so, okay, quite a cross section here. We've got the most popular answer was measuring effectiveness. 31% of people said that. Next most popular was crafting the personalized content. Also, we had almost 25% for identifying audience segments and a little over 20% for integrating AI tools. So really concerned.
Pretty balanced.
Yeah, pretty balanced. Concerns across the board. And concerns are good because that means there are opportunities. So want to formally welcome everyone again to our webinar, The Future of Comms, Hyper-Personalization Powered by AI. So we're going to dive into several ways that AI is transforming PR and how it's leading to really tailored, personalized outreach at scale. And so we're going to talk about how AI can help you develop that personalized campaign. We're going to talk about how to balance automation with humanity and the human connection. And then we're going to look at practical examples of using AI across the PESO model, which of course Ginny and SpinSucks developed. So that brings me to my intro of Ginny. Ginny Dietrich is the founder, CEO, and author of SpinSucks, host of the SpinSucks podcast, author of SpinSucks, and leader of the SpinSucks community. She's the creator of the PESO model and has crafted a certification for it in collaboration with USC Annenberg School. Ginny has run and grown an agency for the past 19 years. She's co-author of Marketing in the Round and co-host of the Agency Leadership Podcast. So again, welcome, Ginny.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I always love hanging out with you, Zach.
Yes, likewise. So our agenda for today, touched on it a little bit, but just to recap, we're going to talk about AI, reshaping PR and comms, hyper-personalization. We're going to touch on the PESO model and how AI sort of integrates with that. And then we're going to talk about, balancing AI with the human connection. Then we're going to, of course, have Q&A. So as you have questions throughout the webinar, just drop them into the comments or the questions box, and we will address as many as possible. Just for a really quick background on Propel, for those who are not familiar. So I'm Zach Cutler, founder and CEO of Propel, and I spent my whole career in PR. I'm a media relations guy, started an agency in 2009. And as we grew, I was frustrated by the lack of really good innovative technology for our industry. So we tried all of the CRMs that were out there built for sales, like HubSpot and Salesforce. We tried all the legacy PR software, but nothing really gave us what we were looking for. We wanted data-driven PR. We wanted really good workflow, a lot of good insights, and just have the trains run better, more organized, etc. And so got the idea to create the first CRM for PR. We call it PRM, Public Relations Management. We launched the version, the first version of Propel, which was the first ever CRM for PR, about 5 years ago. And fast forward to today, we built the most advanced AI for our industry, the only Gmail and Outlook plugins in the industry, really amazing analytics across the board, and really, really amazing workflow innovations. So we're a full PR platform. You can check us out at propelmypr.com. And we have hundreds of leading agencies and brands relying on us today. So that's just a little bit about Propel. And now let's get into the meat. So Ginny, I want to start by diving into personalized outreach. From your experience and what you're seeing today, how would you say AI is reshaping the way that we tailor pitches to journalists and influencers?
Really poorly. Yeah, I just a little bit. I think we have a gigantic opportunity in front of us to use AI to make us more efficient and to get really personalized pitches out the door in an effective way, but it's not being used appropriately yet. And you can always tell. You can always tell. I just right before we jumped on here, I jumped onto LinkedIn to go through some content I just posted, and of the 15 comments, 3 of them were written by AI. You can tell. So imagine that at scale where you're doing that with journalists. And, as somebody, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but as somebody who gets pitches all day long for both the blog and for the podcast, I can tell when what's been written by AI and what hasn't been. And I can tell when somebody has written an article or has sent in quotes that have been written by AI. So I think you have a really big opportunity to use it, but it can't replace your expertise. You still have to have the human touch. You still have to go in and say, okay, I wouldn't word it this way, or I wouldn't say this, or use it to make you more efficient and to help you personalize at a different level, but you still have to use your expertise in your brain to make it worthwhile for the receiver to actually respond to it.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and I totally hear that. So what would you say are the signs of a pitch that have been created by AI? How are you able to tell that?
In today's insert adjective landscape, that's a big one. There's one that is used where it will summarize content and then ask a question. So it'll summarize content that you just wrote and say, so what do you think is the future of AI? And you're like, wait. Okay, so you just used AI to summarize the content. You can tell when somebody has put in links into probably Chat GPT or Notebook LM and said, summarize this for me so I can write a pitch. You can tell because it uses certain words that are pretty crucial is one. What are some others? Impact is another, the overuse of the word impact. There are like words that it uses that you can tell has been written by AI. So again, it's really going in there, letting, put the links in and say, these are the last 5 articles that this journalist wrote. Can you summarize and provide a pitch for me? That's great, but that's your starting point. That's not your ending point.
Yeah, I totally hear that. That's very interesting that you have specific words and phrases that you've been able to identify as
In
commonly.
today's
Yeah,
fast evolving landscape, you're like, oh,
right. Right, right. Now I wonder if you've ever gotten pitched by someone who used AI but actually, prompted their prompt engineered their prompt in a clever way where it sounded more human and you weren't able to notice.
maybe. I mean, if I didn't notice then and I responded, then good on them. But I can almost always tell at this point because I think we're not using it effectively. And this is generally, it's not just, we're saying, okay, let's use this to make us more efficient. And then we're not using our humanness to edit and to make it sound actually human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing that I think is crucial is that you don't just go as a PR practitioner to ChatGPT and say, okay, write me a pitch about X. Because what's going to happen is exactly what Ginny's been saying. It's ChatGPT, the way that it's trained to answer things is that the team at OpenAI creates a framework for how it should answer. So I've asked it different kinds of questions, even about personal stuff. And I've noticed it always has the same pattern when I ask it a similar question. And so, like, let's say I'm asking it about a friendship or something. It will always suggest that, communication is key, and it always follows this same pattern. But what I find really amazing and where the magic is when, as a PR practitioner, you can actually prompt engineer a prompt that cuts through that,
Right.
because the only thing that determines the output is the input, which is the prompt. So
That's
like
right.
in Propel, for example, we didn't want to create another vanilla wrapper for a press release writer or a pitch writer. We thought that that would be bringing no new value. So the main thing that we created that we focus on for our content generation feature is that the user can actually write in their own voice. So they give us examples of their previous pitches or press releases they've written, and now Propel is able to write it in that user's individual voice. And so I think that what Jenny said is spot on, that if you're just going to Chat GPT and you're just relying on that kind of vanilla draft that you're going to get without a clever prompt or without using a tool like Propel where you can train it in your own voice, then it's not only going to not be helpful, but it's going to hurt your relationship with journalists. So that's interesting. next question, Jenny. So obviously audience segmentation is critical now with the diverse and ever-growing media landscape and everything around that. There's a million channels, there's a million influencers, micro journalists, bloggers, podcasts, you name it. How do you use AI, or how should a PR person use AI to improve how they segment and how they reach the right journalists?
God, it's such a good question because, Axios earlier this year determined that there's probably about 12 different media bubbles today. And, it used to be 3. It used to be TV, radio, and print. And so it's quadrupled. And these are the kinds of things that we have to think about. So how do we reach 12 different media bubbles, or do we target 3 of them? Do we target 1 of them? So it's really about what the goals are, of course, and what you're trying to achieve. And one of the things I say to clients a lot is they're like, well, we really want to be in the New York Times, or we really want to be in the Wall Street Journal. And the question is always why? Usually it's ego driven, because what we discover is their customers, their potential customers, are not reading the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Maybe some of them are, but most of our clients, because we do B2B SaaS, that's not what they're reading. They're reading Fast Company, they're reading Inc., they're reading, those kinds of TechCrunch, they're reading those kinds of things. And so it's not any different than what we've done in the past, which is, where is our audience hanging out? We just have quadruple more places to figure out where they're hanging out. And to your point, are there micro influencers? Are there Substack newsletter authors? Are there podcasters? We have to really figure out where it is that our audiences, our potential audiences, are hanging out, and go there first, versus trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah, I agree. I also think sort of the legacy media databases, there's a lot of searches you can do, but typically it's more around broad topics.
Right.
Like we have a customer that was trying to find journalists writing about potato yield and the increase in agricultural effectiveness of growing potatoes. And so they were explaining to us that every time they try that, they have to just search for something broad like agriculture, maybe farming, but they could never have a very specific niche search like potato yield that would give them results. And so I think also modern PR tools need to integrate prompts into their database so that users can actually put in those hyper niche specific topics. We did that at Propel. We recently launched it, but I think others are starting to do that, hopefully in the coming quarters, because like trying to find the right people when you can't get specific, I think is impossible.
It's so hard. Yeah. I mean, you can use AI, and certainly it sounds like Propel does some of this too, but so you can use AI to say, I'm looking for this specific thing. The challenge with like OpenAI and Claude and those is there's a cutoff time, right? So if anything is after September 2022, you're going to have a hard time finding it. So if you can find a database like Propel that has it built in, that's 2024 and beyond, then I think you have an opportunity to really start to build your niche audiences.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's hop over to the next question I have for you, Jenny. So if we break down the PESO model and how AI can apply to it, I'd love to hear from you for each element, the paid, the earned, the shared, and the owned, how it's being affected by AI, how AI can help.
Well, the whole thing. So we refreshed the model in January, and we inserted AI into certain pieces of it, because almost a year ago, it was only affecting certain pieces, and now it's just, so we're working on a refresh for this January as well. But AI is in all of it. And one of the things that we teach through the certification is, this is sort of the scientific approach. This is the framework that you use One of the biggest mistakes that we see when somebody says they use the PESO model, or an agency or a company says they use the PESO model, what they do is they throw the graphic up on the screen and then they pick tactics from each. So they say, well, we're doing social media ads, and we're doing media relations, and we're doing some influencer marketing, and we're doing a podcast, and we're of course on TikTok and Instagram. They think they've done the PESO model, and that's not it at all. Really what it is it's an integrated, measurable framework. And so it's the approach is pretty scientific. And so in January, when we relaunched it, we talked about how to use AI to help with like editorial calendar and your keyword research and things like that you could use. Today, it affects everything. So we look at it and we say, okay, if I'm going to implement a PESO model program and these are my goals, what might I include? And it will help you sort of figure those pieces out. And and of course it will help you with your keyword research, and it will help you with your editorial calendar. It will help you figure out what times of day to post things, you know, instead of just general benchmarks for the industry. It's really specific to your organization. It will help you determine what paid campaigns are working and what's not, and maybe just a word or two that needs to tweak. And again, best times to post. It helps you figure out what kinds of content, what's most engaging. You know, do people respond to long form content? Do they like audio? Just based on your audience instead of the general benchmarks. But the biggest thing it does is it helps you measure your campaigns in really effective ways. So now, instead of having a spreadsheet full of data that you have to kind of dig through and do the analysis, you can throw that data into AI and say, like, give me an example. So I'll give you a really good example. I'm a cyclist. And I started adding in strength training this year to really help improve my my ability to go faster than the boys. So as I've done that, I've used AI to help dictate kind of where I'm going. And so my coach and I will do all the normal things. We do the pictures and we do the measurements and we do all that. And then I throw all of that data into AI and I say, compare this data to last month, compare this data to last quarter, compare this data to February, which is when I started. And it gives me an output of everything. And it says, you've done this, 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 and this. Here's some areas to improve. And you should be focused on this for the next quarter. And then my coach and I can go through that and determine what my goals are. Same thing with your campaigns. You can throw that data in there and it will give you strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It will provide recommendations. Some things you're like, I don't really know if that's the case. And some things you as a human being might have missed. So it really allows you to look at it differently than you do as humans.
That's fantastic. And do you have a model that you recommend for people, or what's worked best from what you've seen?
I mean, personally, I love Claude, and I love Claude because I can create projects and I've done it so that it's private, so that I can put data in there. And I can throw stuff up in there. So I'll give you another good example. I'm writing the second edition of Spin Sucks right now. And I actually went to ChatGPT first and I uploaded the table of contents from the first edition and I uploaded all of the content from the first edition. And I said, here's the first edition. Here are my goals for the second edition. I'd like to do this. I'd like the PESO model to be front and center. Can you write a table of contents with that in mind? And it probably took 6 or 7 prompts before it gave me something that I was like, okay, this is usable. And then I took that and put it into Claude and I created a project for the book. And then as I write each chapter, I throw the chapter in there and I say, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything that's confusing? Is there anything that, you know, somebody with 20 years of experience or 1 year of experience might not understand? How does it compare to the table of contents? And how does it compare to chapters I've already written? And every single time it compliments me. It's like, this is really good. And then it'll say, here are 4 or 5 things I think you should improve. And you're like, dang, I didn't even think about that. It finds duplicate content. It does things that, you know, you would normally hire a really good editor for. I can get sort of that basic stuff done first. And then at the end, I'll hire a really good editor to go through it one last time. So there are lots of ways that you can use it. But personally, mine are Claude, Notebook LM, ChatGPT, are probably the big ones. I've been testing Waldo for more research kinds of things. But I don't use Jasper or Perplexity, which I think are the other big two that people like.
Yeah, so that's interesting. My favorites are ChatGPT. I mean, I use ChatGPT probably 20 to 50 times a day.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I barely use Google search anymore. And I just love it so much. I also recently started using Midjourney, which I don't know if you've heard of it. It's an incredible image generation model. It's just fantastic.
Is
And
it
I
better than Dolly? Because Dolly's really bad.
It is 100 times better than
Okay,
Dolly.
good to know. I'm
I
gonna write that
was
down.
I moved into a new apartment and I was trying to create some art using AI. So I tried Dolly, sent it to some friends, and then one of my friends suggested Midjourney. And then I've been using that, and it's just fantastic. Um, Now, I think it's cool that Ginny and I and others that are involved with AI and PR like using AI tools in different parts of our lives, because at least for me, it always gives me ideas of how I can apply different AI principles and prompting principles to propel into the PR industry. Because like if you can nail the prompting,
Right. Right.
it's magic. It's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what I always say. Think of the AI as an intern. So if you bring on an intern and you're teaching them how to do PR, you don't say to them, go out and create a pitch and go pitch the new business. You don't say to them, write a book. You don't say to them, create a podcast. You give them like chunks of things to do. And then when they give it back to you, you provide feedback. You say, okay, this is really great. Focus on this. I think you missed this. Like you, and that's what you want to think about your AI with as well, is it's a really smart intern that works 24/7. But you can say to it, I think you missed the mark on this, or you hallucinated on that. Or I've noticed that Claude will make stuff up. It'll be like, in my work with Mark, a communications professional at a tech agency, I'm like, that's not true. You can't just make stuff like that up. So you have to tell it, right? You have to, through your prompting, you have to tell it, these are the things you should be thinking about. And I want you to do this and I want you to do that. So I always think about it as an intern that you can have working constantly in the background while you're doing your work as well.
Totally, exactly. And I think that the more context you can give it, it just gets so much better. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
I was putting together a go-to-market plan for Propel for 2025, and so instead of just asking ChatGPT, "Oh, can you help me put this together?" I gave it the entire context of an investor deck so that it could understand what is Propel and what's our history and all of that. And then I ask it to help with the go-to-market plan and XYZ ideas. And then it's like, wow, this thing just saved me half a day at least.
Easily. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
With your book, I mean, if you didn't have LLMs in the world today, how much longer do you think it would take you to write the new Spin Sucks book versus with the LLMs?
A year.
And with the LLMs?
3 months.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it's unlocking so much creative potential in everyone, and just, yeah, I think it's very exciting.
It's
I
free. It
actually,
just frees up more time. Like, think about
yeah,
it from this perspective. There are some of you on this call who will remember these days, but in the olden days, we would get the big Greens Bacon's books out and we would go through and we would say, okay, we need to pitch agriculture, we need to pitch farm trades, we need to, and so you'd go through the big Green Bacon's books and you would copy the pages that you need, and then you would start making phone calls. And then the legacy data, the Bacons went online, right? And the legacy databases started to create this in a way for you to be able to do it at scale. And then Google allowed you to start searching for reporters and what they were writing about. And so you were able to create media lists much more effectively and so much faster. And that's what AI is doing now too, is it's not taking our jobs. It's not it's not going to make us go away. It's just going to make us more efficient so that we can do the things that we're really good at versus having to make copies of pages out of a big green Bacon's book and making phone calls and leaving voicemails and going back and forth, right? It's just making you more efficient.
I couldn't agree more. And it gives us back that time in the day so that we can focus on the parts of PR that we love the most and
That's
that
right.
are the
That's exactly right.
like thinking really creatively about a new angle or story idea, or even developing a relationship more with a client or with a journalist. Like these are the things that are so intangible and human. And the AI, by helping us automate the mundane, repetitive parts of PR, it gives us back those hours to do those more meaningful things.
That's right.
And I think that's just going to keep growing. And it's really going to be a golden era where eventually you're just going to be able to reach the right journalists really easily. And and basically PR will be about super creative angles, messages, stories. And I think it's going to be awesome. So let's go to the next question I have, Jenny, which is, we know that AI can provide a lot of insights and can give someone a clear picture of what's working, what's not. Can you talk a little bit about that and how AI can actually help people understand which campaigns are performing well and which aren't?
Yeah. So again, you can throw data in there, right? And ask it, what's working, what's not working. Are there any things is there anything that you would suggest that we change? And, sometimes it does hallucinate. And so that's why I say it still needs us as humans to do it. But it also will give you some really good ideas that you didn't expect. And one of the things, we have one client that was posting a LinkedIn newsletter every Tuesday at 8 a.m. And what we discovered was that it was highly engaged. As humans, we discovered it was highly engaged about 10 a.m. On Tuesdays. Well, when we threw the data into ChatGPT, it said actually it is more engaged on Tuesdays at 10. But if you tried it Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Central Time, you'll find even more engagement, which had never even occurred to us. And so just based on general benchmarks and industry benchmarks. And so we started doing it at Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and it just went. And so it helps you kind of think through those things. If you have an ad that's not performing particularly well, it will tell you, try this or tweak that. If you have content that's performing extraordinarily well, it will give you some tweaks to help it continue to perform well. It will help you with long tail keywords, like insert this and this and this, or republish it with this kind of research. So it provides all of that input that you wouldn't necessarily either have the time for or wouldn't see just because you can't see the forest for the tree sometimes. It provides those adjustments for you really easily.
That's great. And do people get these tips of how to prompt it in the PESO certification?
Yes, they do.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, plug there for PESO certification. Next question, Jenny. So we talked about this a little bit a few minutes ago, but just to get into the balance of, AI automation with the human connection, do you have any concerns about where that stands or where that's headed, or is it all in a good direction? Would love to hear more about that.
Just like anything else, people will use technology for evil. And you are seeing some of this, just like I do with our clients, I have alerts set up for my name, for the company name, and for the PESO model. And I have started to see in the last 6 weeks, probably, more and more content that is written by AI that a human has not done anything with. And it always starts with, in today's evolving landscape. I'm telling you, that's the key one. But what the quote unquote author has done has gone into one of the AI solutions and said, I want to write an article on measurement in PR and, provide some content, source it, use, and so it will use me as a source. Sometimes I read one the other day and I was like, that doesn't sound like me. I don't think I've ever said that. And so I looked and no, it hallucinated. It made up a quote for me, but there wasn't the person who published it didn't edit it, didn't double check that the sourcing was correct, didn't provide any links to what they were sourcing or anything like that. So I think we are in trouble from that perspective where people are just using it. But I keep thinking about it from the perspective of back in the day, people would use website scrapers to go in and scrape competitors' websites and pull content out and then just republish it on their own websites. And those practices didn't last very long. And I think we're sophisticated enough, especially in this industry, for people to start saying, listen, like that's really crappy. So it's not going to work. We have lots of clients. I had a client send me a logo that he had ChatGPT create and it spelled their company name wrong. And I was like, okay, let's have this conversation. First off, it didn't spell your name right. Secondly, it does we are starting to see some of that, right? But I think if we can fight the good fight and really do automation with authenticity and ensure that we are using our expertise to improve it and to make it better, like this is just the start, not the end, then I think we'll be in a good place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I keep going back to the key concept that AI, it's really a partner with humans, because
Yeah.
if you go to the most amazing AI tool, like I mentioned, been using Midjourney to create some art for my house. And, if you give it a crappy prompt, you're going to get crap. Like there's no question about it.
Right.
You are thoughtful and you bring your human creativity to the table and you really think through and you imagine, oh, I want, instead of telling it, I want a beach scene in, I don't know, Southern California. Instead of that, you could say, I want a watercolor with beautiful warm tones of this and a family playing on the sand, and then it can really create something magical. And
Zach, I really want to see this artwork you're creating.
Yeah. It's the same with the language model. It's the same with AI model. So, yeah, I encourage everyone that's on the webinar, and we've had a few hundred signups, so thanks again for everyone joining, to really, invest some time into learning how to write a great prompt. And there's so much you can, research about this. Something I like to also do is to actually use AI to improve my prompts. So
Sure.
I would write a simple prompt and then I could ask ChatGPT, improve this prompt for me. And I will always edit it because it's not going to be perfect, but it saves me so much time. And
it's an intern. It's your intern. It's a really good intern.
There you go. And I would also encourage those who have not tried it yet to try out the model called Strawberry, which is also known as O1 Preview. It's a new model from OpenAI that launched in September. Very impressive, very advanced reasoning. Can do some absolutely mind-boggling things, way more advanced than 4.0, which was already amazing. So I would encourage everyone to check that out. But moving on, so any last tips you want to share with the audience before we get into Q&A?
I think that your point about testing it out and playing with it is smart. My mom is highly creative, and I told her that she should use it to come up with some new Christmas card ideas, because she makes cards and they're incredible. I did not get that talent, nor do I have the patience, but she emailed me and she's like, this is crap. And she sent the stuff to me and I'm like, Mom, that's user error. Like you just didn't prompt it correctly. And she didn't like that answer. But I think just the more you use it and the more you play with it and the more you understand how to prompt it, the better. You can certainly start with, Trust Insights did a really nice prompt guide of things where you can start. HubSpot has a nice guide as well of prompts that you can use to start if you don't really know where to start. But it's like anything else. The more you use it, the better you will get at it, and then use it to really make yourself more efficient. So, I used to have a boss who loved Faith popcorn, and she would say, let's put this on our popcorn list. And it was all the stuff that was on the popcorn list were the things that we wanted to get to eventually, but maybe didn't have the time or the budget or whatever happened to be. And so we have a popcorn list. Everybody has back burner projects that they want to get to. What this does is it frees up the time to do some of that stuff. So choose something that's on your back burner list or your popcorn list and say, I want to focus on this next quarter. How do I free up my time to do that? And use AI to help you free up the time to be able to get to that.
Yeah, exactly. I also just want to touch again on personalization of PR pitches. So like at my agency, as I mentioned, that was a golden rule. Every pitch had to have some research done on the individual journalist. What did they recently write? And then to pull a insight or a comment from that recent article. So the journalists really felt like we did our homework and we weren't spraying and praying them.
Right.
Now, AI tools, and we've built this into Propel, you can actually do personalized intros that are really good. And like we only allow you to save them as drafts in your drafts folder before, so you have to review them before sending.
Smart.
Yeah, because like we want to require you to review them, but like, man, it's not going to be 100% perfect every time, but it's going to save you so much time. It's
Right.
really, and the last little nugget I want to share about AI tips is just, I think this is really cool for kids too. Like my good friend just had a baby and I was asking her, I told her I want to get a gift for her baby and her other daughter. And she was like, I asked her what would be good. And she said, well, her daughter likes drawing, so maybe some markers. And then I was like telling her about Midjourney. And then she was like, wow, that could be amazing
You
for
do a painting for me.
yeah, she's no, like for her to actually get a subscription and have her 3-year-old use it with her. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like I'm excited to give that to them and see what they think. But on our next webinar, I'll report back how my friend's 3-year-old daughter is doing with Midjourney. But
He's
anyway,
probably going to blow us all out of the water.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's an exciting era here for sure. And with all of that, let's open up for Q&A. I think we had some questions coming in the chat. So Rebecca asked, did you feed it the benchmarks or does it know?
Oh, it generally knows. But like I said, there's a cutoff point. I think it's September of 2022, depending on which ChatGPT is September 2022. So if you want more current data, then I would just pull it from a Google search and stick it in there so it has the more current data. But it knows for sure. It knows.
Yeah, I agree. It has tremendous world knowledge context. That's
Yeah.
really what the models do. They spend billions of dollars on ingesting all data. Yeah, we are going to send the recording, Megan. So everyone will get a copy of the recording after the webinar. We had another question from Ryan about the book. He said, can you explain the book? Was it written by AI?
Oh no, it's not written by AI. I still, because I'm a writer by trade, I still have to write my own content, but I am using it to edit, to improve, and to when you write a book, because it's so big, you sometimes forget what's at the beginning when you get to the end. So I have it compare and make sure that there's nothing that's duplicative, that there's nothing that I've explained that doesn't make any sense, wouldn't make any sense to say an 8th grader. So I have it do stuff like that. I have it compare to previous chapters or to the table of contents to make sure I haven't missed anything in that chapter, but I still believe I have to be the actual writer.
Yeah, that's really key, that balance. The AI needs it and we need it. We need that partnership.
Yeah.
Neil asked, how do you use Notebook LLM?
I love Notebook LLM. So first of all, it's incredible for audio, and it's like go play with it. But what you can do is you can take a whole bunch of links and throw them in and say, can you summarize this for me? Or let's say that Propel just released a big benchmark study and you don't want to take the time to read it all. And you could throw that in there and say, can you summarize this for me? And then what it does it will create frequently asked questions. It will create a study guide. But the most important thing, or the coolest thing I think that it will do, is it creates audio for you. So I did a fundamentals of media measurement course, and I threw all of the scripts up there in there, and I said, can you create a 2-minute trailer for this course to help promote it? And in like 3 minutes, I had a trailer. There were some things I would change, like it mispronounced my name. So I like the things you would have to edit it for sure. And I think I probably would edit it down because it was too long, but it took 3 minutes to create a trailer that would promote this course for me, which probably would have taken me and my team like half a week to be able to do. So I really love it from that perspective. Also, it has a really interesting podcasting piece to it that if you wanted to try that out, because it has 2 hosts that actually have a conversation, and you can tell it's AI, but it has a conversation as if they're people, and it's pretty interesting. But play with it for
I
sure.
haven't used it. I'm gonna check that out. So Julia is asking if you can give a brief info on what the new SpinSucks 2 book will teach us.
Well, it's led by the PESO model. So the first edition mentions the PESO model and probably spends like a chapter and a half on it, because it was a decade ago and it wasn't fully baked. Now it's fully baked. So it leads with that. So it will actually teach you how to not just pull tactics from each media type, but how to integrate it and measure it. But we also touch on things that, the reason the business and the all of the brand and everything has been sucks is because I believe that we are ethical, transparent, authentic professionals. And certainly there are some industries in our profession that are not, but for the most part, 80% of us, I would say, are ethical. And so it does focus a bit on those kinds of things and on crisis and reputation. And because we're in a quote unquote post-truth America, what that means for our industry as well.
All right, and Georgina asked, when will the refreshed course be available?
Well, I would say it's January, but depends on how December goes. By February 1st for sure.
Got it. Julia asked us, does anyone else feel like media relations is dying and harder to get paid for? So Julia, if we look at media relations exactly as it was before, then yes. But if we look at it as an expanded field that includes podcasters, micro influencers, micro journalists, people on X that have a lot of followers that might not even be an influencer, but they have some kind of interesting following, then I think media relations is alive and kicking more than ever. Jenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think where it has expanded, one of the things that we did with the 2024 refresh of the PESO model was really look at how earned media has expanded. And it's not just broadcast, print, and TV anymore. It's podcasting, it's comments, it's the Substack newsletter or the LinkedIn newsletter author, it's the micro influencers, it's the TikTok and Twitch news anchors. Like there are lots of places where you can still get attention without going to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. And I think whatever, regardless of what anyone's politics are, we can see the massive influence of platforms like X and just how it affected the presidential election. It's really mind-boggling. But we got another question here from Victor. Which other AI tools besides ChatGPT and Notebook do we recommend? Anything else come to mind on your side, Jenny?
and Midjourney. So I prefer Claude for like day-to-day stuff. I've been using a platform called Leaps, where my team and I have been using Leaps for subject matter expertise insights. And so what it'll do is it'll allow you to write all of the questions, and then it sends the questions to the SME. And the best part about it, well, two great things about it. Number one is it reminds the SME if they haven't done it in time. So you can set it to say, remind in 3 days, remind in 5 days, whatever it happens to be. So it does that. And then it allows the subject matter expert to respond via voice to text, which tends to be easier for people, especially if they're not writers. They can just voice their answers. And then it transcribes everything, and it puts everything, you have all of the answers, but then it puts everything into an outline. And it says, based on the answers and your questions that you asked, here's how you should structure the content. So it does a really nice job from that perspective. Those are probably the big ones that we use AI wise.
Yeah, on my side, like I said, Midjourney, I love. We've also used 11 Labs for some pretty cool audio stuff.
Love that. Yep.
Really good one. We're looking into Sana for some voice stuff as well. We've played around with some video ones, but haven't been too impressed so far.
I haven't either yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in 2025, hopefully we'll see those start to get a lot better, because right now they're pretty lousy. I've tried quite a few. And then my ultimate go-to favorite of all time is definitely ChatGPT. When I started realizing that I'm asking it dating advice, then I realized, wow, this thing is good. So yeah,
Zach.
it's become quite a tool that I use.
I love it.
So we had another comment here from Dan, saying to Julia, yes, on traditional media relations, that it's dying and we should replace it with a new paradigm. Looks like Propel are a big part of this. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. As is PESO model. I think that's why I love having Ginny on these webinars, because there's not that many great innovators in our industry. And I think what PESO and SpinSucks are doing and what Propel are doing are exciting for this industry, which is very ripe for innovation. Julia is recommending Runway ML for text to images.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Yeah.
Sounds good. And then Rebecca asked if we have policies and frameworks on how to use AI in an ethical way. So yeah, we've actually spent a lot of time on that. We have really good guardrails. We've thought through, how to limit what the outputs are, and also how to guide our users in the right way. So I think that's really important, and needs to be obviously a continuous project. And then Julia said, is Propel like Muckrack in terms of a database, or more for agencies' own CRM use? So Julia, we started out as a CRM, which we call PRM, but we've actually worked very hard over the last couple of years to build our own monitoring and our own media database, which is the first AI media database. And so now we're an end-to-end platform that includes the most advanced CRM for PR, but also the best database. And so I encourage you to try it out. Everyone can get 30 days free on our site, propelmypr.com. And like I said at the beginning, we're giving a special promo code to all SpinSucks members, where if you sign up for Propel and you pick a paid plan, you will get 20% off. Just use the promo code SpinSucks, one word, and that'll take 20% off of the bill there for you. So also, one thing I just want to mention, if anyone does try out Propel, you can always you can send an email to support@propelmypr.com. We pride ourselves on replying within 1 hour. That's our promise to all
I
our
feel like
customers.
we should all test this.
So between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, 1 hour maximum response time. Ginny, anything else you want to leave with the audience before we close up?
I mean, the promotion that you're doing is so incredibly generous. Thank you. I really appreciate that for the community.
Yeah, well, it's our pleasure, and we appreciate what you guys are doing. And yeah, if anyone has any other questions, you can always reach out to us. We do these webinars monthly, and we look forward to seeing you again. And Jenny, would love to have you back in 2025.
Let's do it.
All right, thanks so much, Jenny. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Appreciate your time.
everyone.
Take care, guys.